Wow, 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 wow. How you guys doing? Thanks for tuning in once again. Appreciate everybody that's in the chat. Well, we in the Nebuchadnezzar right here. You know, we're just observing the matrix. All right. Hope you guys having a good day. We're just gonna continue basically reading where we left off yesterday in that book, and just see what else we can learn. Right. So, welcome, welcome. Just wanted to go ahead and show myself real quick. Thanks to everybody that's tuning in once again, all the patrons, all the people who've been following all these years. If you're new, hey, welcome, welcome. Hope you enjoy. All right, hope you enjoy. So yeah. Welcome, welcome. Looking younger. you know. Yeah, man. Looking and feeling. I wish the looks went with the feeling. But we soldier, man. We tough. We stay. We try. We try. That's what I'm saying. We got to stay healthy. We got to eat the right things and take care of ourselves. Welcome, welcome. Let me know if anytime the music is louder than my voice, because it sounds pretty loud in my headphones sometimes. So, all right, shout out to all the music producers, Bezo Breeze, everybody out there, Ocelot. Yeah. So we in the book again, Merchant Adventures, Kings of Rhoda, The Lost World of the Tucson Artifacts by Donald and Yates. By Donald and Yates. Hey, wow, wow, what's up, James? What's up? Make sure to check out James' channel. Hey, we got a wise elder, a brother, and a lot of experiences, and you might learn something. So hey, welcome J9. Thank you, all the moderators. Thank you. Um, oh, nice little beat right here. Yeah. Just get the vibe going. That tune is from ancient Rhoda, Tucson, ancient Tucson or Rhoda. That's where that beat's from. With the so-called Roman Hebrews, all tags. Remember what we learned yesterday? Hebrew's just a language too. It's you got to break this down and get detailed and all that. So that's what we try to do. Thanks, welcome. So maybe you guys remember I did the video with Queen Khalifa. There's a couple little videos here and there. This one was when she was actually, I was showing you guys that she was actually part of Roman law. There's books about talking about her from 1200s, 1300s, talking about Queen Khalifa, how she went to court with the Romans, and then a little funny story. We're gonna get to it. So because we're talking about so-called Romans in America, right? Queen Khalifa, California, right? She was close to the promised land, the legends say, right? The Holy Land, the Garden of Eden. All right, so that's all right here. So if Queen Khalifa is dealing with Romans here in America, hey, it's not too far-fetched to, learn about ancient Rhoda being right here in Tucson, Arizona. Let's get that a little bit of this video, just for fun, so we can get people coming in.
Right, 1230 AD, they were already talking about Queen California and how she was going against the court. Right, so they had to make a law about it because they didn't want no other women like her, basically making them look bad. All right. The numerous manuscripts of the Schwarzenberg, on the other hand, not only contain with variations in spelling the California passage in full, but they even embroider on it by adding that the lady in question was a Roman noble woman. So she was a Roman from the promised land noble woman. What are we talking about? From America? California? All right, let's keep going.
All right, so that was even before, way back. This is a video way back. This is before what we read yesterday about the Romani and Roman, man meaning a kindred or one of ourselves, like a saying, like in Spanish we say paisano. Paisano, in Italy they say paisano, mean from the same country or something, like countryman, or from one of our people, one of our clans, So here you go. She's a Roman noble, so-called Roman.
And that her objectionable behavior consisted in showing her naked posterior to the king. Oh, so she mooned the king. She wasn't having it with these clowns. She was like, you know what? Talk to my butt. posterior. Talk to my naked posterior. Thereupon the latter, after consulting with his wise attendants, established the rule that no woman should ever be permitted to be advocate nor plead her case before court without her guardian, or what? A legal representative appointed by the court? So who would be her guardian? What does that mean? The explanation of this expanded version of the California episode in the Schwarzenspiegel may be that the author, wishing to be more explicit than his Saxon predecessor, consulted a source of the anecdote not known to Eike von Rekov. That fits in with the general assumption that Eike knew practically no Roman law, the California passage being usually quoted as the only example of Roman influence in his work. While the composer of the later book, writing at a time when that law had begun to penetrate into Germany, already had access to works containing the California story in its Latin original. As will be seen, this assumption would also account for the names used in the later book. One difficulty remains, however, since the known Latin sources do not contain all the details mentioned by the writer of the Schwarzenspiegel. He must either have invented them himself to make the episode more vivid and more to the taste of his contemporaries. All right, so they're saying he might have made up that extra part where she mooned the king and she was Roman, you know, but it makes sense because she is from the promised land. She is noble. All right, and if somebody, show their posterior to somebody they don't respect, especially if they're being disrespectful or they're trying something, that's not going down with her. All right, so continuing, or he found it already given in the expanded form in some intermediary source which has been lost to us. So he's saying maybe he has some inside knowledge, inside info, all right, that he knew that the previous author did not know, the previous version of it. The sources of Roman law became available in Germany only in the later Middle Ages through Latin excerpts or translations and adaptations made by foreign scholars, especially Italian and French. A Latin manuscript of that sort is preserved in the monastery of Godwig in Lower Austria. It mentions a Calpurnia indisciplinatissima. I almost could interpret that. It almost sounds like they're saying Queen Khalifa or the California, who is basically undisciplined, indisciplinatissima. Because when you say tissima, it's like a lot. But does that seem to elaborate further? According to the editor of the manuscript, it was written about 1170 by a Frenchman, probably in Paris, and was designed as a short course in Roman law for the use of the clergy. All right, so again, they found a manuscript, right, in French in about 1170 that said Calpurnia indisciplinatissima. All right, I already told you what I think it means. All right, so let's see what they say. It says, it is said to be one of the oldest comprehensive presentations of the theory of Roman law known in medieval literature. All right, now listen to this. This is so interesting. So, Roman law, and it has something to do with California and Queen Khalifa. All right. From this, it appears fairly certain that the story of California, used as an argument to rationalize the forbidding of women to plead before court, was widely known lawyers' anecdote. All right, this was known. This was law. Popular in various parts of Europe, at least since the end of the 12th century. We're talking about by the end of the 1100s. You see how old this is? You see, this is history. This ain't romance only. This ain't plays. Where do they get ideas for movies and plays?
All right. So, yeah, I think we got a good amount of people here now, guys. Let me just make sure. Second. All right, sorry, I had lost my page here. 1 second. Okay. So what I wanted to show there, while we waited people join us, is that even in California, she's part of Roman law. All right, so check it out. So what are we saying? From California to Tucson, Arizona. All right, you got it's not that far. Well, even if you get to the border or whatever, but they're saying, you know, I guess they put you all the way up here in San Francisco, but it could be shorter. It's right there, literally. So Roman, part of Roman law, huh? All right. Let's go ahead and get on with the book. That's why we're here, right? Welcome, welcome. Hold on, guys. And just bear with me because we live, we live. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for everybody tuning in. The real Wonder Woman, that's what's up, yeah. You know, the real. So again, we're in the Merchant Adventure, Kings of Rhoda, The Lost World of Tucson Artifacts by Donald N. Jays. Shout out to Donald Jays. Hey, thanks for writing this book. You know, because Daniel Lowe, he don't want us to read his book, giving us copyright strikes and stuff. Well, we're just, using it for fair use, education. We're getting little excerpts here and there, you know, sharing it with the community, commentary and learning. Yeah, so we're gonna pick up where we left off yesterday. All right, let me see where we at. Here we go. Okay. Says here, these are works of art and records of an official and esoteric nature. Oh yeah, so let's remind everybody, hold on guys. Just want to remind everybody. Okay, so we have, a video on the Tucson Crosses. Go ahead and check it out. We read a couple articles on it, and we touched on it on the part one yesterday. All right, make sure you watch part one if you haven't of this, it's okay. And again, this was the video we just saw, Prince Khalifa and Historic Roman Laws. It's actually a lot longer. Go ahead and check out the full video. And these are the artifacts they found here in Tucson, Arizona, confirmed by geologists to be buried, natural accumulation. You can see almost like a mud, they're saying flood, not mud flood literally, but they said, yeah, mud, something covered over mud. And so, and you can see writings, Old Latin, type of Hebrew. Yeah, coinciding with that 8th, 7th century Roman script, and telling a story. We're going to read a little bit of that story today. All right, we're going to continue in the book again. All right, so again, official artifacts. These are official artifacts they found in Tucson, Arizona. Okay. 8th century Roman Jew artifacts from Arizona. So-called Jew, so-called Roman. All right, make sure to remember everything we read yesterday. Okay. These are works of art and records of an official and esoteric nature. They combine elements of Judaism, Christianity, Celtic culture. I remember we read about that Ogum and the Latin, what Latin really looked like. It looks like Paleo Hebrew, literally. A lot of it looks runic, too, Punic, writing, Iberian, Celtic. So, military life, exotic lands, and trade. Their language is one of elegant simplicity and expressive succinctness. Their geographic focus is on Jerusalem and the city of Rhoda in the New World. The Tucson artifacts are perhaps unique in offering this particular combination of cultural interconnections. They pose formidable challenges of interpretation and evaluation to experts in several fields. Theodorus conquest of Rhoda. And shout out to Drop. He's touched on this investigation a lot. Con Drop from 432 to Drop Radio. So it says, of the 11 Latin inscriptions signed by Oliver, this one stands out as the best composed, and most celebrated. The Great Cross was the first of the set of strange ceremonial objects bearing Latin and Hebrew unearthed by chance in 1924 outside of Tucson, Arizona, and now in the keeping of the Arizona Historical Society. Unlike so much of the evidence for Old World contact, this is the Old World. They're seeing it in reverse, and influences in pre Columbian America, which has to be pieced together and defended with complex arguments. The Tucson artifacts constitute a self contained, complete, easily readable, and self proof historical record. The Great Cross happens to have been the first that was found on September 13th, 1924. And there has been nothing like it since. Its discovery was instantly sensationalized in the headlines of the day. See two newspaper reports. Not only do we learn the names and nationalities of the first three Roman governors, Silvanus, Pima, Siwan, English Swami of Rhoda, probably the site of Tucson on the west side of the Santa Cruz River. This was ancient Rhoda, as well as the geographical setting for their exploits. Terra Incognita, a label for North Mexico that persisted on maps until the 18th century, meaning unknown land. But also, we are forcibly struck by the date January 1st, 800, casually mentioned, almost carelessly recorded, and improbably preserved. The information places the events exactly within the context of Charlemagne's rise to Emperor, Christmas 799 or New Year's 800, and is consistent with his known favoritism to Jews called Romani. The Romani, who's the Romani that went into the British Isles? Remember, yesterday, and interested in gaining gold, spices, and other riches from newly forged long distance trade connections. Long distance, all right, navigating the whole world, extending through the domains of the Caliph in Baghdad. All the incongruous, unlike elements that make the Tucson artifacts a unique and seemingly improbable witness to pre Columbian history are introduced in this brief analytic text. Jewish and Christian symbols, Romans and barbarian law, all right, Roman law, like California is part of Roman law, Queen Khalifa, Old World and New World peoples, classical literature and the Bible, military and religious themes from 1AB, the Great Cross, and the Tucson artifacts. To the memory of Romans, Romani, right, Romani, Gaio Romans and others, to Brittany, Britannia, and Albion's Jacob, Iago, to that second Aetius, Theodore, Tudor, Theodore or Tudors, huh? The Tudors, huh? And to Israel of the Sign province in Gaul, consuls of mighty cities with 700 soldiers each, AD 800, January 1st, were carried by sea, CALALUS, Hebrew, empty, all used up, Hohokam is terra incognita, unknown land. The Toltec builder race, all right, the builder race, the architects, because that's what Toltec really is, guys. It's not like a specific nation, it was the architects of a greater nation. These were the architects, the Toltecs, the builder race. Governor was a king ruling widely over the peoples. They were transferred. Theodore deploying his troops before the city of Rhoda. So what it's trying to say is this Theodore, and the story was written in these inscriptions on the cross, is that this Theodore, this Hebrew, Roman Jew, right, came and took over the ancient city of Rhoda, which was run by the Toltec or builder race. So, as it says here, Theodore deploying his troops before the city of Rhoda or Rose City, and more than 700 captives were taken. Not one of them in the city was exempted from gold, auto. Theodore, a true man of the highest value, reigns for 14 years. Jacob reigns for 6. God aided him. Have no fear in the name of the God of Israel, Oliver. All right, so what are we talking about here? Could this be two different Israelite tribes warring against each other? Quite possibly. Hellenized, Romanized Jews, Israelites, maybe? Are we talking about Hasmoneans? What are we talking about? You know, we got to put all into context, you know. Swimming with gold, Ure was Jacob, with God helping him. He reigned with strong hand, Deuteronomy 26:8. in the way of his ancestors. Leviticus 26:45, sing unto the Lord, and you see the verses here, may his fame live forever. Oliver. It says here, part 2, whole history in a nutshell. As the keeper of history under its kings, Oliver composed this brief timeline of events at Rhoda, based no doubt on earlier materials. It appears on 3 AB, the second of the leaden inscribed double crosses recovered from the Silver Bell Road find site, from the AB Oval Cross 900 in the Tucson artifacts. From the beginning, AD 790-900 AD, not but by the cross. While war raged, Israel died. Pray for the soul of one of Israel. May the earth lie lightly upon thee, as he was unto our fathers, so may God be unto us. He adds glory to the glory of our forefathers. Israel was a defender of the faith. He reigned 67 years. Israel the second reigned for 6 years. Israel the third has now begun his reign at 26 years old. It's like a chronology here in the inscriptions. This is what they're translating, supposedly, right? It has been a war to the death, to vanquish or die, flourishing with ancestral honor day after day. In either event, however, our spirits will not be broken. Thanks be to God. With time slipping by, on the other hand, that font and source of evil, now comes our final day and the unavoidable end. I, the Lord, am with ye. Oliver. And it says here, Romans across the sea. Continuing the series of finds and recording the names of the first 2 kings of Rhoda is the single leading cross brought to light on November 30, 1924 by Charles Z. Manier Raher. Than the others. It seems to have been made by different hands, although its Roman capital script in gold and filled letterings are the same. Was it made as a single cross? Possibly an unsatisfactory attempt, or did the other half get separated from it in the catastrophic mudslide? The mudslide that buried the whole set of ceremonial objects of the Romani. Then the Romani become so-called gypsies. Who's your gypsies? Original Egyptians coming out of Egypt. So these artifacts were buried in a catastrophic mud flood, or mudslide. Could its other half still lie buried in the sediment in Kalish on Silver Bell Road? From the Albion Cross, 9th century, and the Tucson artifacts. All right, that's where they got that. So it says here, part 2, newspaper reports. All right. On September 13, 1924, a Tucson policeman and his family went for a Saturday drive in their car. On their way back from Picture Rocks, a local petroglyph site, they stopped just past 9 Mile Waterhole on the old Wells Fargo Stagecoach Road to look at an abandoned lime kiln. A patch had been dug out by up the 7-foot high slope to the base of the ruined kiln. 8.5 feet northeast of the kiln, east perimeter, at a point 5 feet 5 inches below ground level, erosion had uncovered a dark object sticking out horizontally 3 inches from a wall of compacted soil and alluvial gravel. The policeman was Charles E. Manier, a disabled World War I veteran who moved to Tucson for his health in the early fall of 1920. The lime kiln was the 5th one of its kind on Silver Bell Road, about 8 miles northwest of downtown Tucson, on the west side of the Santa Cruz River. According to eyewitnesses, Manier tapped the object with his father's walking stick, and the metallic sound given off arrested the party. Not being able to pull the object from the solid layers of accumulated caliche or lime embedded in it, Manier fetched a small army's trench pick and spade from the car. He excavated a heavy cast-lead cross, whose lumpy, rugged exterior measured 12 inches wide on the cross arms and 17.5 inches tall when stood upright. On thoroughly cleaning the cross, it was discovered that it was made in 2 parts held together with leaden rivets with a wax substance similar to beeswax or some type of animal fat between the 2 halves as a preservative. The weight of the cross is 60 pounds. It is roughly made, having the appearance of being molded in the rough ground, and on the inner surfaces of both the parts are Latin inscriptions. Remember what the old Latin looks like. It literally looks like the so-called Paleo Hebrew, a lot of the Iberian Celtic. It's just all going to go back to the same language. The cross was buried in a partly excavated or eroded hill, and was about 65 inches below the original surface in a lime or caliche formation. The composition of the earth strata above the object was as follows. On top, about 30 inches of piled up loose rock and dirt, and below this, about 29 inches of the original virgin, undisturbed soil, while the next stratum consisted of about 26 inches of loose caliche, and below this was a stratum of solid caliche. The cross was found in the loose caliche, well down toward the solid caliche. The next day on Sunday, an excited party of university personnel and students under acting museum director Carl Rubert went to the discovery site with Manier and his brother John. They excavated a second artifact, a flat chunk of inscribed caliche resembling a triangular tombstone. It was found embedded in a horizontal position on its side 2 inches below the first artifact and bore the date AD 800. A second double cross would be extracted from the same depth 28 inches further into the hill along the same trench 2 months later on November 28th. Over the next year, 25 more artifacts were excavated at the same level, all in horizontal positions, where they evidently had fallen over and been covered by sedimentation, in addition to 6 inscribed crosses covered with Latin inscriptions. 2 Nehushtan's were Hebrew, one in the shape of a Celtic cross with a rattlesnake, and a paddle-shaped military standard displaying a mitre, field design, temples, axis, cross of the Latin patriarch, and the date 705. There were whole or fragmentary swords and spears. The story of the discovery of the Tucson artifacts can be followed in contemporary newspaper accounts in exhaustive detail, all right? And in my video, I show one from the New York Times, very detailed one, so check out that video. The excavators kept meticulous notes and maintained several card files about field operations. Byron Cummins, the senior archaeologist involved, seems to have maintained papers and correspondence. He wrote a final report for the University of Arizona's lawyers, officers, and trustees in 1930, under duress when excavations were abandoned. Although the artifacts were famous enough to be hand-carried by Cummins around the country and shown to experts at the Peabody Museum, Carnegie Institute, and Smithsonian Institution, there is no mention of any records concerning them in the finding aids of these or any other learned bodies outside of Arizona. All right, they keep it hush. The Bent family repeatedly sought official records and notes from M.L. Horry, Cummins' successor, but their efforts were always rebuffed. Like a feral child appearing on the outskirts of a town, the Tucson Crosses came into the world naked, devoid of any history. They have been closed with theories and hypotheses. There is, however, one revealing local angle from before the discovery, a tantalizing earlier episode from the 1880s. It was then that Hispanic laborers in a lime kiln on Silver Bell Road removed some unusual objects they found buried deep beneath the hardpan called locally caliche. According to Covey, a crew of lime workmen around 1884 broke through the top crust of caliche covering a deeply deposited bench in the Santa Cruz riverbed on Silver Bell Road to find a sublayer 4 to 5 feet thick. Probably they used a dynamite, a standard practice. All right, guys. Welcome. We're just here reading the book Merchant Adventure, Kings of Rhoda, The Lost World of the Tucson Artifacts. They came upon a couple of metal swords, which one of the finders gave to his children, who in time lost them. Either the same workers or others found 3 pieces of bone in the vicinity in those early days, but museum personnel of the newly founded nearby University of Arizona lost them. In 1900, a petrified animal skeleton was excavated at one of the kilns. The museum subsequently lost it too. All right, so-called lost it. That's what they always do. They supposedly lose things, right? So you don't know about it. By 1910, caveats, most of the kilns serving the plaster and stucco industry were abandoned. All of them except for the skeletal shells of 2 had been wiped from the landscape. Today, even these reminders of Tucson's past are vanished. A large Portland cement factory arose downstream from the discovery site, testimony to the rich lime deposits worked in a prior day. In 1921, knives of the blue-black rock were found and ruins on the Santa Cruz. In early November 1924, Manier visited his friend Thomas W. Bent and showed him the caliche stone marker and heavy cross covered with Latin. A 28-year-old employee of what would become the Veterans Administration, Ben had arrived in Tucson the same year as Manier after his own army discharge. He was a native New Yorker. After some discussion, the two formed a legal partnership for further excavations on November 25, 1924. Manier, not physically able to pursue heavy work, accordingly, Thomas Bent was the discoverer of the second double cross, Artifact 3, 3 days later on November 28, 1924. The site of the 1880 and 1924 discoveries lay on public domain land. Boldly seizing the opportunity this circumstance afforded, Bent took up residence in a tent and corrugated metal garage and eventually managed to homestead the property, dig a well, and build a livable house for his family. He staked his claim on February 20th, 1925. On November 4th, 1927. All right, so yeah, exactly what she was saying, new to them and but old to the ancestors or people who were there already, right? So he staked his claim. He found these artifacts on November 4, 1927, pursuant to the Homestead Act of 1862. Remember the Homestead Act, where they're giving all this land to all these settlers, all the indigenous land. The General Land Office in Washington issued patent number, and here's a number 1009045 to him, signed by Calvin Coolidge. The tract of land was described as the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter and the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 18 in Township 13 south of Range 13 east of the Gila and Salt River Meridian, Arizona, containing 80 acres. A task force was now formed to continue excavations on Silver Bell Road. Bent and Manier were its leaders. They hired local laborers and continued the trench into the Limekiln hillside, maintaining logs, notebooks, card files, and detailed records that might well be envy of any professional field archaeologist today. Dr. Clifton J. Sarley, a University of Arizona geology professor, advised Bent on the proper methodology for documenting the ongoing activities and resultant finds. Laura Coleman Ostrander, who taught art in the Tucson public schools, tackled the Latin and strange symbols on the artifacts. Latin professor Frank Fowler continued his translation, seeking advice from a dozen or more experts, as shown by surviving correspondence. An article in the Arizona Daily Star on September 21st, 1924, leaked news of the discovery of the first set of crosses, with its emblazoned date of AD 800. After 6 crosses were recovered from the site, the last 2 freed at the hands of a Mexican or Indian worker. Well, which one is it, huh? Or is it the same thing? Or what are we talking about here? On the January 24, 1925, with Professor Rupert directing their efforts, a series of swords and spears began to emerge. The first sword, Artifact 8, was won from the ground on February 13, 1925, when, according to Covey, Manier, his wife, and daughter, Ethel, removed about a foot of soil and caliche from the face of the excavation wall, 14.5 feet directly west of the first discovery, at the 5-foot 4-inch level, and exposed a firmly cemented, double-edged, nearly 2-pound sword, 17.5 inches long. All right, its metal was the same as that of the crosses, but its edges were hard and sharp. All right, we're talking about swords here. A cross with an L at the center of the crosspiece sat flanked on either side by figures like snakes. On the other side recurred the geometrical field, the sign flanked by the letters L and I. On March 28, 1925 at 10:30 a.m. Hey guys, let me know if the music is louder than my voice, because to me, I just put it down on my headphones, so I can't really hear it. So on March 28, 1925 at 10:30 a.m., the scientist A.E. Douglas was accorded the honor of pulling a second sword from the trench wall 32 feet distant from the spot on the first discovery 6 months before. It resembled the first sword. Douglas at the time was director of the newly built Stewart Observatory in Oracle and head of the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of Arizona. With the support of the Smithsonian Institution and major funding from the National Geographic Society. He would become the founder of dendrochronology in 1929 and witnessed the university's inauguration of the Laboratory for Tree Ring Research in 1937. Gradually, more and more experts at the university were involved, including Byron Cummins, founder of the archaeology program, dean and later president, returning from Mexico in the fall of 1924 and resuming the rectorship of the Arizona History Museum. Cummins took an increasingly active interest when academic duties and new seasons at Cuicuilco did not preempt his time. He was present for the excavation of a sword blade and released a statement to the press stipulating, "I am convinced that the articles taken from undisturbed deposits embedded so deeply and completely in Kalish are genuine." Okay, guys, you hear that? So, again, a lot of people were trying to debunk these artifacts. They've been swept under the ground by the Smithsonian and all that. But a lot of archaeologists, a lot of scholars, people that know this stuff, it's in their field. Like this guy saying, "I'm convinced." He saw it. He was there. I saw where it was dug out of. Geologists are like, "Yeah, that's natural accumulation. Nobody buried there that in the 1500s or recently." Okay, so these are real artifacts, guys. These are real artifacts. What are they doing there? Tucson, right? Tucson was built on ancient Rhoda, the ancient city of Rhoda. Amazing. What's up? Back for was mine. Hey, Tlatuani. Hey, support all these channels. Warsheet Red Line. Much love and respect to all the moderators there. Thank you. Peace, peace. Cummins would eventually broker an abortive sponsorship of the excavations by the university. He was present in all official capacity when the last artifact was taken from the soil in 1929. A young Emil W. Horry, destined to rule the Arizona archaeology scene for more than a half a century. A.E. Douglas, founder of the science of tree-ring dating, National Museum curator Neil Judd, Cummins' nephew, geology professor Thomas S. Loverin, and various experts at the College of Mines and Engineering became involved. Photographs were circulated, rubbings and facsimiles made, metal assays and radiocarbon dating undertaken, and a flurry of letters sent off to the seats of learning in Washington, New York, Harvard, Chicago, and Oxford. All right, this was very scholarly research done, excavation. And this was swept under the ground. On February 11, 1928, a plenary gathering of experts was assembled for the extraction of a broken spear shaft, artifact 30. John Hand, conductor of excavations for the university, allowed the lead fragment to lie in place after its partial uncovering until it could be ceremoniously extracted and photographed by local press. Dr. Gurion Montauk Butler, Dean of the College of Mines and Engineering at the University of Arizona, ceremoniously pulled the artifact free and held it up, declaring that the overlying soil gave no evidence of having been disturbed recently. All right, these are your scientists excavating this. Among those in the scientific party witnessing the removal of the shaft were Byron Cummins, president of the University of Arizona and premier archaeologist of the Southwest, Dr. Alexander A. Stoyanov, professor of geology, Dr. William Horatio Brown, assistant professor of geology, Dr. T.T. Waterman, associate professor of anthropology, Robert Reed, fellow in geology, Emil W. Horry, fellow in archaeology, and a number of students in Cummins' archaeology class. An exact account of the reclamation of each article from the ancient bed of alluvial deposits, complete with witnesses, dimensions, and details of the inscriptions in Latin, Hebrew, and Proto-Chinese pictographs, can be found in Covey, 1975. His chapter, Excavation of the First 13 Artifacts, covers the dates September 13, 1924, when the Great Cross came to light, to April 4, 1925, when the Bent Manure team discovered Artifact 13, a lead labarum or ceremonial standard dubbed the paddle or fan. This object added a wealth of religious imagery and pushed the historical context of the emergent enigma back to 560. All right, so there's actually a lot of artifacts they found, not just the ones that they show us in these newspapers. You know, they hid a lot of them. We don't got pictures of them. They've lost all this stuff supposedly. Yeah, definitely older than the colonization of America. That's what we're like. That's what these geologists are proving. That's what these scientists are proving. It wasn't the Spanish. That's why some of these archaeologists try to say, well, maybe it was the Spanish because they know these are legit artifacts. They can't say it was not. It's old writing that these people they didn't even know at that time. You know, it's old. It's older writings that they didn't even write anymore in the 1500s, 1600s. So, you know, it wasn't definitely them, and it's nobody recent. The lead labarum weighed 5 pounds, 4 ounces. The fan part measured 10 and 1/4 inches long by 9 wide with a 12 5/8 inch handle. It exhibited superb engraving on both sides. The observed surmounting a cap crown over two oblique swords and a large reproduction of the field diagram, which separated the initials L and I. Two three-masted boats filled in, and the Tolos temple with TOB beneath occupied the fan base. Below TOB ran the surprising legend Anno Domini DLX. On the handle appeared the curly Q decorative device, a patriarchal double cross arm cross, and the Roman letter N. The reverse side repeated the Tolos, this time with a patriarchal cross atop the dome, and ADDCCV below the TOB. A large patriarchal cross stood below the temple, and a bishop's cap between the temple, and this separate cross on each lower margin, a battle axe suspended, and in the upper long conical horn-blown flying angle, and a chalice with a hovering dove, respectively. Were it not for the diagram labeling the unknown land, CALALUS, all right, CALALUS, plus the composition of the lead, all right, it was actually the words CALALUS was inscribed there. We wouldn't conclude the engraving too finely executed not to have been done long before in Europe and brought overseas as a heirloom. All right, now it was done here. On the same day, the labarum was discovered. A third sword, Artifact 12, came to light. The date was Sunday, April 5th, 1925. The location was 12.5 feet northwest of the first discovery, Cross 1AB, at the same level. The two partners, Manier and Ben, used a pick and screwdriver to extricate the sword, whose crosspiece bore the CALALUS field design, and whose blade exhibited what was to become the most controversial engraving of all. To everyone's amazement, it appeared to be the clear outline of a dinosaur. Uh-oh, complete with forked tongue, massive hump, and a long neck and tail. All right, are we talking about dinosaurs or dragons? Dragons, huh? In the next 14, notably, the pair with Hebrew words, 8397, Covey carries the log forward from May 26, 1925 to November 13, 1925. Amid swords, spears, and shafts, several in fragments were two notable large crosses of unusual make. Credit for the discovery of the caliche, of the first of these belonged to one of the hired laborers, Antonio Corella, working in well-cemented caliche with tools resharpened daily because of the tough resistance of the deposit. Corella, on August 29, 1925, tumbled a ceremonial cross with a large pieces of adherent caliche from the west wall 27 feet northwest of the first discovery by undercutting below the 6 foot level. It weighed 2 pounds 4 ounces with a slender 17 3/4 inch spear headed shaft and 8.5 inch cross arm. The word CALALUS appearing on the obverse left extension of the cross arm. All right, CALALUS, the promised land. The broken off bottom of the shaft was never found. A ring circled the juncture, a realistic snake twined through it, its tail lapping across a medallion, whose pointed blades projected as a rudimentary second cross arm, not quite halfway between the main cross arm and the broken off lower end of the upright shaft. The left hand blade burst of this medallion bore the coat of arms, field design, and the letter L. The right hand, the familiar bishop's cap. The reverse, a flat football-shaped surface, bore the Latin inscription, which translates, "We are born on the sea, from Rome to CALALUS." Where is Rome? From Rome to CALALUS. Bore the Latin inscription, which translates, "We are born." I'm sorry, from from Rome to CALALUS, an unknown land. CALALUS, an unknown land. They came in Anno Domini 775, and Theodore ruled the people. Theodorus loomed engraved in the three divisions on the resuming shaft below. Hey, wow, hey, Scion Train. Man, I'm deeply humbled, man. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, man. Oh, family, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. The pitchfork and the curlicue were joined by a new symbol or so, including an apparent snakehead. On the obverse of the cross shaft, the pitchfork repeated on the reverse, which remained otherwise blank, except for the overspilling of Theodorus. The second cross in the final season of excavations under Bent and Manuel was perhaps the last big surprise the site gave up. It was another Nehushtan or Jewish ritual object akin to the serpent cross. 18. Here is how Covey describes the coming to light of what many referred to later as the Ten Commandments cross. Meanwhile, on September 1st, a laborer had discovered an exotic cross with a crescent above its main cross arm. At 6 feet in the west wall, 31 feet northwest of the first discovery, it lay cemented a couple of inches beneath a 100-pound boulder firmly embedded in the surrounding caliche. A heavy pick broke the boulder from the cross, which was another Nehushtan. It weighed 3 pounds, 11 ounces. Its upright shaft with knob top measured 21 3/16 inches. Below the knob, between two bulges of the shaft, extended the upturned cusp of 5 3/8 inch crescent cross arms, a 6 3/8 inch straight cross arm right angled farther down, and a rattlesnake entwined it as well as the shaft below. A rattlesnake, just like the brazen serpent of Moses. This crescent cross Nehushtan was extremely well wrought, on the same order of competence as the labarum. Sun rays streamed down from a majestic robed Yahweh in the clouds on the knob top. On the bulge below it, a pair of herald angels trumpet away from each other in flight. Two avenging angels swooped toward each other with clubs on the crescent. The familiar bishop's cap with L on it and LI. Beneath it occupies the lower, lesser bulge. All right. The bishop's cap ornaments that shaft section between the straight cross arms, which exhibit the familiar curlicue, and incense smokes from an open receptacle on the lower shaft. On the obverse, we particularly puzzle over the Indian Thunderbird, which looks to his left at the juncture of bulge and crescent, and the Masonic compass spread over an upturned square on each horn of the crescent. The L and LI bishop's cap follow in the lower bulge, and a medieval gloved hand below that. Hebrew words appear on both sides of the Nehushtan as well as of the other. All right, this is all again being found, and this is legitly found by archaeologists, scientists, directors of museums, masters in their field in Tucson, Arizona, guys, in the 1920s, which they, didn't teach us about when we went to school. On November 13, 1925, an intense 14-month period of discoveries ended on Silver Bell Road with John S. Bent's finding of another small broken spear point, artifact 27. Credit for discovery of the first spear, artifact 10, also belongs to John, who was Thomas Bent's, sorry guys, I was just trying to read, brother. He was responsible as well for finding the last artifact, logged on March 15th, 1928. This is 32, a broken handle. A series of spears and fragments of spears had started to appear on March 4th, 1925, with the discovery of a hollow shaft. Few of the spears had markings, although like the swords, many matched or completed each other. It was obvious that the crosses, tablets, standards, swords, and spears all belonged to the same trove. The spears continued until the abandonment of the dig by the University of Arizona in 1928. Aside from Manier and the Bent brothers, The names of the following were also associated in the records with finds in the spear category: L.A. Borges, Placido Ochoa, Ricardo Balancuela, Dr. Gordon Butler, and Charles B. Conrad. Any one of these finds is made as the result of lone chance in the years 1925 to 1928 would have deserved a major announcement in the annals of Arizona archaeology. With 27 out of what would be a total of 32 relics unearthed, the bulk of the excavation work was finished. So far, except for sharing discoveries as they occurred with experts involved from the University of Arizona, the Bent team had kept everything under wraps. The Bents were to show themselves serious and discreet stewards of the CALALUS artifacts throughout. The Bent son, Thomas Jr., grew up sleeping on a bed with the precious objects carefully stored beneath it, an arrangement in retrospect not strictly safe from the viewpoint of possible lead poisoning. In 1930, after withdrawal of university sponsorship, John Bent discovered the last find, Artifact 32. There were now 27 artifacts. There were to be no more. The heady days of discovery were over. The dossier was complete. The verdict of posterity slammed shut. By the 1950s, the topic was still in the state news, if not national reporting. Ralph Mahoney wrote an article in the Arizona Republic on January 8, 1956. Old Roman relics? Scientists still are puzzled by archaeological discovery of 1924. All right, so they literally, they kept this on the hush. They didn't really tell us, emphasize this. They didn't teach us anything about this. All right, unfortunately, we got a picture here that's sideways. I got my head turned, so I'm looking at it. So a panoramic photo of an abandoned lime kiln site in Silverbed Road. Again, they were finding this stuff buried deep in there. Deep in there. The geologist said, hey, yeah, that's old. That's way before Europeans came here. Yeah. And as we go on to the next part, it says here, part one, prehistoric relics found in Arizona. Before archaeology arrived in Arizona, about 1920, there were undoubtedly many finds of ancient relics that were unrecorded. From 1909 comes this report of relics of a prehistoric race who inhabited the Santa Cruz Valley, in the very area where our Romani lived. Romani. Construction workers building a dam brought to light large quantities of tools and vessels at the same stratigraphic depths at the Tucson artifacts. 5 to 7 feet below the surface, such circumstances seem to point to a cataclysmic mudslide. You hear that? Mudslide? Uh-oh. That surprised inhabitants living on the Santa Cruz and buried their activities under a single layer of sediment that hardened into a caliche, notable in the annals of Brittlescone pine tree ring evidence are distinct minima caused by cold snaps dated to 899 to 900 AD to 902 to 903 AD. Southwest archaeologists speak of a great flood in 899. All right, a great flood. Come on, guys, listen to this. Matthew Salzar, who wrote a University of Arizona dissertation on dendroclimatology, collapses the evidence into a single cataclysmic weather event lasting from 897 to 902. Guys, that's crazy because right after that is when you get the Dark Ages, your so-called Dark Ages, right? When they create the chronologies. Is this one of their resets? Is this one of their resets? Because all of a sudden we're in the Renaissance. All of a sudden we start their Renaissance. All of a sudden we got Roman and Greek history. Yeah, Louis Cuderi in an article published in Science mentions an 881 event, 881 AD. These weather records have been tied to volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, persistent cloud cover, abandonment of agriculture, destruction of cities, famine, disease, and disruption of the El Nino Southern Oscillation. At Rhoda, the end may have come in a dramatic event. They're talking about right there in Tucson, right? When they say Rhoda, in Tucson, ancient Tucson. Well, not so ancient, in the ADs, right? They're saying 800s. So Something happened there. They're saying a dramatic event similar to what happened in ancient Pompeii or on the island of Thera in the mid second millennium BC. Notable global frost events are documented from 1453, associated with the 1451 eruption of Kelud in Java and 1453 eruption of Kuwait in the South Pacific. Oliver, in fact, mentions earthquakes and seems to have a premonition that, as he writes, the final days are at hand. He also speaks of the Toltecs abandoning their towns, evidently seeking higher ground, that there must have been many corpses lying about, and a deadly contagion follows from his quote in Roman law about burying and burning the dead man in the city. Tombstone Weekly Epitaph, December 12, 1909. Relics of a prehistoric race who inhabited the Santa Cruz Valley, it is believed during the Stone Age, have come to light through excavations made by workmen while engaged in the construction of the dam for the Santa Cruz River, about 20 miles below the Aguirre Ranch. From 5 to 7 feet below the surface, workmen have plowed up a large quantity of stone implements, including stone axes, utensils of various kinds, and vessels whose use now is unknown. Recently, the laborers uncovered several specimens of the ollas, vessels, used to hold water. So these ollas or pots, right, to hold water. This, it is said, is a curious anomaly, as other finds show a much greater age than the Mexican ollas. All right, some of these things are older than the ones they're finding in Mexico. All right. Should we continue, guys? You guys enjoying? Should we keep reading? Let me see. Okay, yeah, let's read a little bit more. Part 2, it says here, evidences of ancient civilization are found west of Tucson. All right, west of Tucson, where? In the land of Queen Khalifa? Or are you talking about Utah? What are you talking about? Oh, yeah. Robert F. Gilder was a journalist by occupation and an archaeologist and painter by avocation. Although an amateur, he belonged to the heroic first generation of professional archaeologists and ethnologists that included Kidder, Feeks, Cushion, and other notables. In 1919, he retired from newspaper work in Nebraska and visited his friend Harold Bell Wright, the novelist, later author of the bestseller The Mine with the Iron Door. Gilder hoped to retire in Tucson, but that never happened. While there, however, he painted desert landscapes and discovered 47 ruined sites. The following newspaper account was the result of an inspection of Tumamook Hill with Dr. Byron Cummins, head of the newly established Department of Archaeology at the University of Arizona and director of the Arizona State Museum. The name Tumamook means Hill of the Magicians, the Horned Toad, an allusion evidently to the armor-clad foreigners who built its fortifications. Tumamook appears to be the site of Rhoda for the approaches to this unusual stone hilltop for display the trademark R and 9-petaled rose of our Romani. From its summit, one can see in all directions as far as the Silver Belt Mountains, Babo Kivari, and the Papagueria, the Catalinas, with Mount Lemon, the Santa Ritas, and the headwaters of the Santa Cruz River in Sonora, Mexico. All right, and that's from the book The Tucson Mining District at the Dawn of American Settlement. It used to be thought that the etymology of the place name Tucson was spring, place of water, but the consensus today derives it from Odham, Tuk or Skook, black plus sun, beginning at the foot, indicating that the Hohokam era city of Tucson lay at the foot of basaltic Tumamook Hill, also referred to as the Black Hill. Right? The soldiers of Charlemagne were not the first to appreciate Tumamook's strategic location. Archaeologists date its first stone building to the 3rd century BC. All right, BC, Arizona, Tucson, long before the Southwest basket maker civilization. The desert laboratory mentioned in Gilder's report refers to an agricultural station established by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Carnegie Institution of Washington in 1903. After being transferred to the Forestry Service, this installation was purchased by the University of Arizona in 1956. Today, the Desert Lab and Tumamook Hill hold official status as a National Environmental Study Site, a National Historic Landmark, and an Arizona Natural Area, as well as being on the National Register of Historic Places. Access to the public was not assured until local activities forced the university to open the site in 2014. One can now glimpse of on any given day hikers, foreign tourists, Weight Watchers, and patients from St. Mary's Medical Complex at the foot of the hill making their way to the top. At the same time, Tumamook remains a mystery, as the following two reports confirm. Because of the rules of the desert laboratory against disturbing the ground, the huge site has never been adequately surveyed or excavated, okay? They don't want you to excavate that. It's gonna find something when they start digging right there. The offices of the lab, covering up the best construction site on the butte, are protected by the National Historic Trust. The tombs or barracks on the top parade ground are no longer evident. Asphalt roadways and parking lots have destroyed the old walls and ramparts. Interesting shaped saguaros and free ranging desert tortoises are the main beneficiaries of what must be considered one of the more bizarre projects of American science, originally started by a city fathers to guarantee federal agricultural school funds. Arizona Sunday Star, February 23rd, 1919. It says here ruins of a fortress and house with 240 rooms on mountain of horned toad found to surprise of scientists. Okay, the following is the substance of an address delivered by Robert F. Gilder, archaeologist at the University of Nebraska in Omaha, telling of the ancient fortress on the Desert Laboratory Hill, just west of Tucson. The title of the address is The Mountain of the Horned Toad. Among the many wonders of southern Arizona, there is none more astonishing than the Mount Tumamook, at the western edge of the ancient city of Tucson. And as its history is buried in a remote past, such facts as have been brought to light can be regarded as beginning of the process of unraveling the mass of evidence tending to prove that the mountain and its environment was once the center of an ancient civilization, just as no doubt attached to Casa Grande in olden days, okay? The true old world, guys. That's all we're talking about here. Tumamok in the Papago tongue means horned toad. Hence, the Indians called the eminence the mountain of the horned toad. And that very name is one of the proofs that the present aboriginal inhabitants of the surrounding desert know little or nothing of a people who lived on and about the mountain in the remote period when the present remains of their pueblos and fortifications were new. Looking at the mountain from the northwest, the summit is shown as a straight line, a line too even to be a natural formation, and in reality, a wall made by the people who built a pueblo upon the summit of about 250 separate rooms for the protection of their homes against the attacks of some foe equally unknown. All right, we're talking about literally apartment buildings, guys. And a lot of these pueblo buildings are like apartment buildings. You really start paying attention to them. Fortification lines. Upon all sides of the mountain where it is possible to reach the summit without scaling a perpendicular wall, there are three well-constructed lines of fortifications. These are not in a straight line surrounding the mountain, but are laid out with a knowledge of the military value of the salient, and they zigzag around, offering to those on the inside of the fort the opportunity of an infaliding fire against an attack foe. A series of bumps, when seen from below, give the mountain its name. These bumps or elevations are most noticeable at the northwest corner of the mountain, and no doubt convey to the primitive mind of the Indian an idea of their similarity to the bumps upon the anatomy of the horned toad. These elevations are lookouts nearly circular in shape with walls slightly higher than other portions of the wall of which they are a part. All three forts today are in ruins and appear as long lines or rounded stones covering a ground space of about 15 or 20 feet and generally are about 4 to 5 feet thick or deep. The stones are usually about the size of a bushel measure but there are many smaller stones that evidently fit into spaces between the larger stones. Some of these forts are several thousand feet long. All right, several thousand feet long. And the work of construction must have taken a long time and years, or else a vast army of workmen, guys. This is stuff, they don't want us to know about. They want us to think just savage people living here. Mortars and rocks. Let me get some water. Meh, 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 meh. Don't worry, guys. I'm used to this. The summit of Tumamoc is about 4,000 feet above the surrounding desert, and the area is possibly 3 acres. Today, the lower courses of stone are all that remain of the ancient pueblo. The ruins vary in size, but are in the main 10 to 15 feet in side dimensions and are connected. That is, the wall of one is the wall of those surrounding on all sides but one. The houses were probably one-room affairs and were erected about a central plaza. Streets radiating from the central point like the spokes of a wheel. What appears to have been a large reservoir is also discernible, and about 30 mortars for grinding corn have been made in some of the larger rocks. For the summit, the view of the surrounding desert for miles in every direction, excepting to the southeast, is unimpaired, and one can see mountain peaks 60 miles off very distinctly. 3,000 feet below the summit, located on a considerable shelf or elevated plateau, are the group of buildings of the Carnegie Desert Laboratory, and between the summit and the buildings of a small group of rooms can be traced in pottery, and flint chips were obtained there. Pictographs found. At various elevations are groups of pictographs cut into the volcanic rock of which the mountain is composed. Near the summit is a large group of pictures, one of which seems as if might have been intended for a ground plan of the summit pueblo, nothing exactly like it having come to the attention of the writer heretofore. On the northwest side, where the slope is particularly steep, I had noticed at a distance of a couple of miles what appeared to be a paved roadway leading toward the mountaintop, and realizing that it could not be a paved road, I followed a wagon track which wound about toward the stonework until I came to the lower side and was able to examine what had excited my curiosity closely. Measurements showed the stonework to be 120 feet wide and about 600 feet long, and even a casual investigation showed the remains of walls, and I came to the conclusion then and afterward, had a confirmation of it, that the stonework was the ruin of a collection of small one-room stone houses that had been built upon the sloping side of the mountain, one above the other, like stone steps. Discovery commented on. The few remaining walls were of large interest. They were built of stones over a foot in the diameter from the mountain sides and adjacent desert close to the foot of the mountain. In the crevices between the large stones, smaller stones had been inserted until quite a compact wall had been formed. I also noticed that slow-growing lichens had grown over the walls, sometimes covering several stones. I afterward visited the ruined pueblo with Professor Byron Cummins, head of the Department of Archaeology, University of Arizona, who agreed that I had discovered a remarkable ruin. Dr. Cummins stated that the ruin had not been heretofore discovered as ruins, meaning that whoever used the volcanic boulders for building purposes had no knowledge that the stones were once walls of an ancient stone structure of over 100 rooms. All right, you guys hear that? Just why the pueblo had been so placed on a site so difficult of access can only be conjectured. To the north of the mountains stretch away the foothills of the Tucson range of sawtooth crags and pinnacles, and the never-ending stretches of arid cactus-covered land through which the Rio del Santa Cruz runs when there is water in its bed, which is seldom nowadays. Along the river, wherever water can be secured, are some of the richest lands inimaginable. And it was the presence of these lands, capable of irrigation, which had drawn the people who lived upon the mountain to that part of the world. This may be called a theory, but facts concerning other localities where extensive farming was carried on by prehistoric people, remove elements of conjecture and establish the fact in both characters, all right? We know they were doing that there. We know this is the true old world. We know they found ancient canals all over the Southwest right there. Same people. At the base of Tumamok, one today finds a number of small hillocks, which experience told me covered the ruins of an ancient pueblos and houses. Arroyos have cut through the desert fragments and refuse. Village refuse. That's supposed to refuge. The industrious badger with claws over 3 inches in length seems to delight in confining his burrowing activities to these hillocks, with the result of placing under the eyes of the explorer all sorts of objects used by the ancients who occupied the houses covered by the desert winds and mountain torrents. Okay. So this is a very interesting part of the book. I might delete a little bit of this video, the one we got a little boring earlier, but I'm glad we started getting into some interesting stuff here in archaeology and facts here, other than just stories. It says here, find prehistoric pottery. Every archaeologist takes advantage of the badger industry, and shell bracelets, turquoise beads, and great variety of other material is secured in looking over the dirt thrown out by badgers. Mortars and metates weighing 10 or more pounds are thrown out by badgers, and it was their work, in fact, which led me to excavate one of the hillocks. So these badgers helping archaeologists excavate. Professor Cummins was my digging companion on one occasion. That day, we went down 3 feet and found a very fine specimen of decorated and glazed prehistoric pottery. Announcement of the positive existence of glazed pottery in the valley of the Santa Cruz River is here made for the first time. It had been previously reported that specimens of glazed pottery had been found farther north in Arizona, but confirmation of such discoveries had not been made in the knowledge of Dr. Cummins or myself. Other discoveries made. Of course, we got badgers. The same day, in a nearby section of an arroyo, our expedition discovered 3 complete pieces of rare aboriginal pottery. One was an olla of about 30 quarts measurement, right? That's like a pot, a large pot. Another was a finely made bowl, while the third, covered with a calcareous accretion when found, proved to be a mortuary urn. Vermilion in color, decorated externally with a unique scroll and triangle in green and black, nearly an inch wide. Returning the following day, at the place Dr. Cummins and I had found the glazed pottery, further excavation disclosed the site of a partly ruined adobe wall. I followed the wall down, and about 5.5 feet struck the floor, which my spade penetrated. Beneath the floor reposed the skeleton of a human being. The long bones had been placed together, and at one side was the skull. The bones were exceedingly fragile and did not last on exposure to the air, but the skull was removed entirely and proved to be of a long-headed type. All right, long-headed type, elongated skulls, guys. Come on. While the desert Indians today are round-headed people. This skull and the strange pots and ollas found nearby are the only things of their kind ever found in Arizona or elsewhere, and they are now among the valued acquisitions of the great Archaeological Museum in the University of Arizona. It might be stated that other strange shapes and styles of pottery discovered in the ruined pueblo at the foot of the Mount Tumamok are also in the Arizona Museum. It must not be supposed that no other pottery has been found in that part of Arizona. The fact is, the whole state is filled with most wonderful evidences, okay? The whole state, if you're from Arizona, it's everywhere, of a vast and ancient population. It's all over there, guys. But the Mount Tumamok skull and pottery show an entirely different method of construction and embellishment when compared with other specimens from Tucson or any other section of the state. Clifton J. Scarlett. Hold on. Clifton J. Scarlett, a geology professor at the university, pursued important explorations and excavations around Tucson and attempted to bring to national attention the unusual culture he found. centered on stone-built villages with fortresses dating to the earliest time, including the large Hohokam village, now covered by St. Mary's Hospital at the northern foot of Tumamokeo. Notable in this report are unchipped stone knives of a blue-black rock. These finds may have been of lead, either crystalline in form or cast, like the swords of the Tucson artifacts. Also important were Scarlett's atypical skeletons, which he says were given to the Arizona State Museum. Altogether, Sarli surveyed over 30 pueblos in the Tucson area. Though these surveys cannot today be accounted for, no more than the vast amount of material he and Gilder turned over to the museum. All this is lost, guys. They hide in it. Noteworthy also is his mention of tombs atop Tumamukeo, and the uncooperative response of desert laboratory authorities to scientists' curiosity. Scientific examination of these ruins has been forbidden. It has been forbidden, guys, by the director of the laboratory. Sarli witnessed some of the Tucson artifacts, public unveilings, and he supported their authenticity. His later work concentrated on consulting reports for landowners and mining companies and water resource projects. His paper occupied 8 boxes in the Arizona Historical Society, all right, MS 1197. Sarli was never credited as Gilder wanted him to be for an archaeological triumph. Arizona Republic in Phoenix, March 7, 1921. Okay, we got here. Let's see. Yeah. So we're gonna end it here, guys. I gotta actually head out, but it's because it's a long book, and if we make it too long, you know, it's be 3 or 4 hour videos. People ain't gonna sit through them. So check out part 1 if you haven't. We're gonna fix this one up. Part 2, when I end the live, we're gonna shorten it a little bit. You know, take out some of the boring parts and leave the good part. And we're gonna keep reading this and further videos. You know, thanks for joining me, tuning in. You know, having the patience with me reading live for about 2 hours. You know, shout out to everybody that tune in, all the real ones out. You know, all the real ones in the chat. I see you. Make sure you guys support all the channels here gathered. You know who they are. All right, and moderators, thanks for having my back. But yeah, we're gonna pick up from here. It says ruins of villages of ancient desert people discovered in Tucson. Right, so just more and more archaeology that we don't know about in this area, Tucson, and it's gonna connect again back to the artifacts. You see, it gets pretty interesting again. So we'll keep reading this, no problem. All right, and again, you know, the land of CALALUS, the promised land, Tucson, Arizona, ancient Rhoda. Is that what it looked like? Ancient Rhoda. Again, Tucson Crosses, 8th century Roman Jew artifacts from Arizona. From Arizona. All right. This is what they're finding here. And along with all the rest of the stuff we just read, the archaeology, the stone buildings, you know, it's all buried here. They don't want you to excavate it. They don't allow people to do any of that. You know, they protect it supposedly, but they're just trying to keep it out of you, keep it from getting excavated. They want your attention to be over there on the other side of the world with their fake Egypt. Shout out to Paul Cook, who proved that's all concrete. It's all recent. It's not megalithic. It's not ancient. It's a joke. It's literally a theme park. Shout out to Paul Cook. Check out his last videos on Egypt. He proved it. They were making that with geopolymer concrete. They were making that. They even made some of them look like ruins. Come on now. Come on, man. We're talking about the true old world right here. Much love and respect. Thanks to all those who donated. Really appreciate it. Very humbled by it. Thank you. I really, you know, you guys are holding me up. You know, thanks for allowing me to have the time to do this more with you guys more often. all story matters, yo, for real. Your story matters, yeah. All your story matters, yeah. All your story matters too, brother. Yeah, make sure to support Back for What's Mine. You know, I like that video with the chant. I love it, man. I love it with the chant. Yeah. Pura vida. Pura vida. Much love and respect. Hey, King Couture, thanks for showing up. Roof, thank you. J9, everybody that's in the chat. Vicar, Don So, Aileen, Israelite, Plight, William Powles, Kalawa, all, hey, Sound greatness, sure sound greatness. Is that what you're saying? Thanks for the donation as well. Calistoga, Robert, Anthony, Lavanta, KNF movie, Anthony Chavez, Iron Briggs, how excellent. Yeah, Conwan, Realms 9, Warsheet Red Lion, yeah. Hey, Rob from Texas, yeah. Old World Florida, hey, thanks for coming through, brother. Didn't see you until now. Shout out, make sure to check out Old World Florida too. All right, putting the pieces together little by little. We all are. All right, we learn. All stories matter. Shout out to Back for What's Mine. All stories matter. All stories matter, yo. That's what's up. Jose Bravo, Tlatuani. Make sure to check out his channel, Tlatuani Machi. All right. Scion Train. Thank you very much, Scion Train. I really appreciate it. Much love and respect, people. Thanks for tuning in once again. Again, having the patience. You see, I was reading this book. I haven't read this book. I didn't know we were going to read all these artifacts and stuff and all this archaeology. And I didn't know there was so many artifacts when it came to the Tucson artifacts. They only show us a couple artifacts, a couple pictures, not all 30 of them. So there's a lot more that they're hiding. We're going to hopefully eventually see them one day when we get our titles and land back and identity and all that back. You already know. Back for what's mine. You already know, especially back for what's mine. Yeah. Much love, man. Sometimes I don't want to leave, but I have to leave. But yeah. Thanks for tuning in, man. Pura vida. Make sure to catch up on the videos if you're new. And don't be distracted by the movie playing out on the news. And don't it's not okay. It's never okay. It's never okay to revenge and take your anger out on little children and women. There is no excuse for none of that. And stop trying to blame. We already know that the same people fund both sides of the war. We already know that you are playing out a movie over there and you just massacring people. That's just wrong. And we over here, but we watching. The Most High is watching, and it's just wrong. But anyways, that's all I gotta say about the Chazars. Don't mention the Chazars. Be careful. Don't mention the Chazars. Yeah. Much love. Peace. Hawa's gonna, it's all coming together. That's why this is happening, guys. Because we're waking up. That's why they oh no, we gotta hurry up and they waking up. We gotta distract. We gotta take over. Oh yeah. Well, don't worry. Keep the code. You'll be protected, guys. Try to keep the code. We're working on that. We're working on keeping the code. All right. Work with me to keep the code. All right. Pura vida. Wow. Let's look for a good song. Hold on. Look for a good song before we get out of here.